There it goes. I'm resident of Collinwood for YouTube. Joined here tonight by my buddy Mark Gillman at I_Barnabas. How are you, man?
Good, good. Very happy to be here again. I'll be discussing.
So we're doing what Freddy's best kills, or our favorite kills anyway, at least. So we'll go Friday. God, Friday. A Nightmare on Elm Street.
It's okay. It's late. It's all right.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's making it there because I don't edit my videos worth shit. But anyway, so A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 1. What's your favorite kill, man?
My favorite one in that one, ooh, I would probably say the very first one where Freddy gets Tina. Um, oh, and yeah, for everybody, spoilers on all these. Yeah, when Freddy gets Tina, um, I think that was a frightening kill. I mean, a lot of people knew Freddy as the jokester, but he didn't start out that way. That was a terrifying kill. And the way that, he was invisible, you couldn't see what was going on. Nobody knew what was happening. And the way that she screamed and was terrified, it was great. And she was, being tossed all around the room, dragged across the ceiling. That was some scary stuff.
Do you think what adds to that scene is not only is it in a bedroom, but her boyfriend's right next to her?
Yeah, yeah, and he couldn't move. He was stuck where he was. So something was holding him down and something holding him back, and he couldn't go to help her. He just had to walk.
Yeah, that's a hell of a scene.
Yeah.
I'm torn between. I was gonna pick Rod's death, but Rod's a dick.
Yeah, yeah. True.
So, I mean, it's a great scene. Like for them to pull the hanging off was really creative. And Freddy's kills. That's sort of the thing with these kills. Like they're all so creative, so it's hard to pick just like one exact. I'm gonna go Glenn's death by default here.
Yeah.
Simply because one, it's Johnny Depp.
Right.
And honestly, the phone call that Nancy gets is classic.
Yeah.
I'm your boyfriend now. And I wish they would have sort of used that line in the next one we're going to discuss, part 2, because they could have used that and had it been great.
Yeah.
But no, they don't have that kind of callback. So my favorite by default is going to be Glenn's. What's your favorite kill in part 2?
In part 2, I've only seen it once, and that was one that I've never gone back to. I guess it's not really a single death, but it's sort of like a mass thing of Freddy at the pool party when the swimming pool. I think that was a great scene, and like the line everybody knows, "You're all my children now." So I thought that was a pretty good one, and I know which one was my least favorite one, and that was the coach. But it was. Yeah, I think the pool party was my favorite one for part 2.
Do you think, because let me ask you, do you think that what adds to that is this is really, we've never seen Freddy, like, because we've only seen one of it at this point in time. You see one, then you see part 2. We've never seen Freddy in front of a mass group of people like this. Do you think that just adds to that scene?
I think it does because, Freddy was only, he was limited to the dream world, and, Nancy was able to pull him out. But the fact that he could, find a way that, like, it's sort of like a possession movie, that he found a way to possess Jesse, and appear in that way. I thought that was pretty good. I think it did.
Before I get to my favorite kill,
Hmm.
my biggest issue with this movie is I don't mind it being a possession movie.
Hmm.
It doesn't stay a possession movie by the end. If at the steel mill, now don't get me wrong, the girl in this movie is a very good actress.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
very, she's very pretty.
Mhm.
I don't, and I mean this in all due respect,
Yeah.
I don't give a flying fuck if she was the Virgin Mary. There's no way they were in love with
No.
that short of time with each other. Yeah, they might have wanted to have sex,
Hmm.
but in love with one another, no, I don't buy that. So by the end of the film, when they're hugging, when she's hugging him, and he's Freddy, like I know Robert Englund is Freddy,
Yeah.
but basically Robert Englund is Freddy through his body. That's the premise of this movie, and I would have applauded this movie more had they stuck with that
Hmm.
instead of having this, oh, I love you, and then he seems to push Freddy. We've talked about the remake where Jackie Earl's character, once he kills somebody, there's no going back.
Hmm.
Well, Jesse kills somebody as Freddy.
Yeah.
And that pool party, even the coach, okay, maybe we let the coach slide a bit to death,
Yeah.
but the pool party, and then before that, the friend's death, which I'm going to pick,
Hmm.
there's no going back.
Right.
So, and that's another issue I have with this. If you have a antagonist, and really two's the blame before we get to the remake, then stick to your guns.
Yeah.
And the girl saying "I love you" at the end, they're back on the bus, and then Freddie punches through the girl's chest or whatever.
Hmm.
It's like, okay, now wait a second, is now Jesse not Freddie anymore? It
Right.
made no sense. But I'm done ranting, I promise.
Fine. It's you're having the same thoughts that I did, and why I've not gone back to that one. As much as I love Nightmare on Elm Street, that was a one and done for me, and yeah, but it was.
The best sequence is that pool sequence.
Hmm.
Like that whole thing they did there. Like
Hmm.
Freddie coming out of the my favorite death is when that boy's sitting in Jesse's room and he's watching him, but he falls asleep too. And now Freddie kills him.
Hmm.
I love that because it's just such a great scene. It's everything's gone to shit now,
Yeah.
like for good. And that's sort of like I love your sequence, the pool, because you're right. It's the mood and the lighting is perfect.
Hmm.
It like it's beautiful. Like that scene, I'm with you. It's beautiful. So I love your kill better than mine. But so Dream Warriors is going to be hard. So Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, Dream Warriors.
Um, is there an all of the above option on this?
I'll let you take it.
Great. All of those kills were so good in that movie. That had the best kills, except for I thought the one for the Wizard Master was a little weak, but um, I've got to say it was oh, it was I'm trying to think of for Jennifer. I was blanking on her name for a second because I knew the actor's name, Penelope Sudrow. Definitely Jennifer's kill when he pulled her up into the TV. That was so good, so good. And I've even trying to find it like on eBay, but apparently they made a Christmas ornament of that part of Freddie with his head out of the TV, holding her up, holding her head inside the TV. I've got to find that Christmas ornament somewhere.
I will help you find that ornament. But yeah, this one has so many good ones.
Mhm.
I'm gonna go where Freddy being the puppeteer, the
Yes.
puppet master, and controlling, and just it looked so. People might say that's a corny scene, but I don't. It's just so damn creepy that
Yeah.
he's literally making somebody walk like a puppet. It
Yeah.
it to me, it's one of my fit. I'm with like the television sequence is great. I love your
Mhm.
welcome to prime time, bitch. It's a great line. It's one of the best lines in the movie. But that puppet scene is just it's eerie because people are watching it happen. Someone's watching it happen,
Yeah.
and it's just like there ain't shit you can do, and that's what makes it scary. It's like oh oh shit, yeah, this is
Yeah.
bad.
First time when I watched that film, I actually backed it up and watched it again because I was like, "Is are those like his veins?" Yeah,
Mhm.
and he veins and pulled his veins out from his skin and was leading him around by his veins, out of his legs and his feet and his arms, and was leading him around that and made it look like a suicide.
Yeah,
And that was a really disturbing death sequence. I
it
mean,
was.
a fact the fact that it was a teenager, and teenage suicide was a hot button issue back then.
Yeah,
Thanks to Ozzy Osbourne with the suicide. And but you know, it it was a really disturbing sequence, and I thought that it was done very well. It looked very realistic, and I remember Kincaid woke up and thought he was just sleepwalking, and from everybody else's point of view, that's what was going on. He was just sleepwalking. Nobody could see what we could see, and that was
right.
the about that kill.
Yeah, it just it like you said, all the above. You could literally just say that about this film because literally every kill is great. But
Hmm.
yeah, A Nightmare on Elm Street Part Four.
Hmm.
We're taking a bunch of brand new characters and adding them. So what's your and this is sort of where Freddy is becoming a little more sillier.
Hmm.
He's becoming more of a comedian a bit in this movie. There's good dark tones to this. So
Oh, I love her.
what's your favorite kill in part four?
In part four, I've heard a lot of people say that they hated this one, and I'll probably take some heat for it, but I've got to say that it's the Roach Motel kill. That was like really when she was lifting weights and you could see her arms start snapping. That like I'm not, really affected by horror much and stuff like that where it turns my stomach, but that really made me cringe and made me a little bit when you could see her arms snap back like that. That
Yeah.
was disgusting.
I like the sequence where because this is the first Nightmare on Elm Street where you literally have a music number
Mhm.
where the character from the previous film, the protagonist, played by someone else,
Mhm.
gets killed. And I love the sequence and of how they do this. It's
Mhm.
classy. It's just the cinematography in this movie is beautiful to watch. Like it just so that's my favorite kill.
Is and I something I noticed about this one, and I guess I've heard other people say something about it with, like in the first three Nightmare movies, there was a lot of like still camera and the camera would stay still. On this one, there was a lot of rotation and stuff. It made it feel a little more like an action movie at times. So I love Nightmare 4. I think it's fantastic. And Lisa Wilcox as Alice is wonderful. She is wonderful.
It's amazing because Lisa, I think Lisa and oh god, Nancy
Yeah.
are the only two people to come back outside of Robert Englund, obviously, multiple times. So part 5, we have Alice 2, the Dream Child.
Huh.
What's your favorite kill in the Dream Child?
Um, ooh, um, in the Dream Child, sometimes this one and Freddy's Dead kind of run together for me because I haven't watched part 5 a whole lot, but I'm going to have to say it's Dan's death, the motorcycle scene where he like turns into looks like Ghost Rider.
Yep.
Which I think they cut a lot of it. The MPAA made them cut it, but like he was riding a motorcycle in his dream, and it's like a lot of the hoses, like that had the gasoline and everything, went into his skin, and he started transforming into the skeleton. That was a pretty intense kill.
This is, I love, we have the same kill. Now, the only kill I would like consider is like in the pool when the girl's diving.
Uh-huh.
I think that's this one, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it
But
is.
that, but I'm with you. The motorcycle is just the best. The way they do that is just amazing. It's awesome to watch.
Yeah.
So it it's literally the best kill of the whole movie. I mean, there are good kills in it,
Mm-hmm.
but
Right.
this is so. We've talked about imagination with the Nightmare franchise. That is one of the most imaginative kills I think in the 5 films to that date.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm. Agree.
Freddy's dead. So, what's your favorite kill of Freddy's Dead?
Freddy's Dead, the final nightmare. Let's see. I would have to say probably um, because there were a lot of funny ones in this one. I would say probably the one where Freddy sticks the Q-tip in the guy's ear, and then he starts scraping his uh, glove against the chalkboard, and it makes his head explode. Because all of the kills in this one were mostly funny,
Yeah,
and just like pick the one that you enjoyed the most.
real quick before I give you mine, it's really this movie's just a fun movie to watch.
It
But
is.
it is truly sad when Roseanne Barr is scarier than Robert Englund. It's
Life, I think. Yeah.
like no, her and Tom Arnold make a cameo in this movie,
I
and it's
remember.
just it's like, and she's like, I'll take you. Like, oh my God, that woman's insane. Like, get
Yeah.
that fucking get that woman out of here. Johnny, I love Johnny Depp's cameo in this.
Oh, yeah. That was great.
Like, the fact that they got him, and it's funny because he has always said he wanted to come back for Wes Craven's A New Nightmare too,
Hmm.
but I guess there was scheduling conflict or something. I forget what it was. But my favorite kill in this is we're introduced to a kid early on who thinks he's Freddy's kid. I
Yeah.
love his death because you weren't sure if he was or wasn't, or if he was going to make it through this whole movie.
Hmm.
And we had never seen someone hang on who started a nightmare and hang on this long, at least this way.
Yeah.
And he does. And when they finally kill him, it's like, oh my God, like you were like, I was, by the time they kill him, I'm sort of attached to this character.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, his death is one of the most, to me, the most meaningful death in the whole film.
Hmm.
And I love how it's done. Just
Hmm.
boom, falls, love it.
Yeah. Kind of made me think of the first Mortal Kombat, like, falling on the pit. Yeah. It gave me some definite Mortal Kombat vibes.
They need the power glove in this movie.
Oh,
That's what they needed Robert Englund to say fatality when he hit
yeah.
the spot.
Yeah, that one's classic because I mean you can't bring up this movie and not talk about the Power Glove. It's so
Right. He's like, they cut the power. You forgot about the Power Glove. I'm like,
now
God,
you like power.
I'm like, Nintendo must have made a fortune, you know.
Yep, he was their greatest like unpaid spokesman
He
because of the
really he was. It's like I don't know how Robert England does not have a deal for life with Nintendo,
oh yeah,
you know. But
that's gotten more Nightmare on Elm Street games, but that's for another day.
no, we got Texas Chainsaw Massacre coming.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've heard, but we got Texas. Thank God. Hopefully, Blumhouse gets off their ass and does Halloween, a Halloween game. No offense to them.
No, no.
And I guess it would be Warner Brothers now, to because they have New Line, but
Hmm.
do a Nightmare on Elm Street game.
Hmm.
You know, games cost money, but they make money too. They make a shitload of it.
Yes.
So Wes Craven's A New Nightmare.
Hmm.
We're bringing Heather Langenkamp back. I love this movie. I know you do too.
Yes, very much.
What is your favorite kill?
Um. Okay, my favorite kill, and this may be a little bit of a cheat, but my favorite kill in this is Freddy. Is when Heather kills Freddy. I fight between them was great, and I mean, the stakes were really upped um, because of him attacking your son and um, and everything. And I just thought that the fight between them, it was sort of like, and I loved how they foreshadowed it, like with Grimm's fairy tales. Um, I thought that was good, like um, how Freddy got thrown in the oven and everything. It's great.
Even though we don't see him die in this movie,
Hmm.
Robert England, technically, because in order for Freddy to come back, Robert would have had to die. I can only and the fact that they don't show it adds to it
Hmm.
because you can only imagine the horror that man went through, you
Hmm.
know, to be made. And because when he's on the phone with Heather, she said they talk about Freddy, and Robert says, "No, not my Freddy, darker, more evil." And even it's you could sort of Robert. This is Robert's best acting ever, where he has this look of fear in his eyes.
Hmm.
He's scared of this Freddy. And I think his death that we don't see, and I know that's a cheat too, is the best in this movie.
Hmm.
Whatever that was, I don't need to see it
Yeah,
because they built that nicely. Whatever.
right, right. And there's not surprisingly there's not a lot of deaths in this movie.
No.
But it doesn't detract from how much I love and enjoy this movie because I mean it keeps you in suspense because you know that there's something wrong. And I thought it was such a great story idea of that Wes had, to use these people as they were, playing them their real selves in a horror movie.
Yeah. I think the concept of that is so psychological, and that's really this movie probably is the best psychological A Nightmare on Elm Street because it's literally messing with reality. Where we know it's fiction, sure,
Hmm.
but that's the fun of it. It's like holy shit, they're playing themselves
Yeah.
as close as they can. Um, but yeah, so I'm trying to think. Freddy versus Jason. There were a lot of kills in this.
Yeah, there were.
What was your favorite kill?
I'm going to say um, that it was the guy, and I can't remember his name because I haven't watched this one in a long time. Um, wasn't there a guy? I think he got shut up in a bed.
Yeah.
Um, I'm think of what the actor's name was. Was his last name Ritter?
I think so.
I think so. I think it was Jason Ritter. And he got shut up in a bed or something, and it like completely broke his body, and it
Yeah.
was like all crunched up. That was a pretty brutal death.
I don't know who to, because here's what's confusing about this movie, even though it's fun to watch. You don't know who to give credit to for the kills, either Freddy or Jason, because there's times Freddy's sort of assisting in these.
Right.
And I guess I got to give Freddy the assistance for this because he lets Jason kill this guy to tranquilize him. There's these two. Uh, Freddy has possessed this kid's body in the real world, and he's got these two needles full of tranquilizers behind his back. And this guy's passing. He goes, "I got this bitch." It's just such a great line. And he just tranks Freddy or tranks Jason as Jason's cuts the kid in half. And it's a beautiful scene.
Yes, it is.
I know it's not technically a Freddy kill, but in many ways, Freddy's aiding in this death.
Right, right. And I need to watch this again. And I remember I loved watching like a lot of the build up, to this movie coming out where they had something that it looked like a box right before a boxing match where they would weigh them in and all that stuff and give their stats and everything, and they trash talked each other. It was just a lot of fun.
I'm gonna watch this tomorrow with Jolie. I'm
Uh,
watching. I'm watching this tomorrow, right after I get done some writing. I'm watching that shit tomorrow. But our last film, A Nightmare on Elm Street, the remake, the movie where they screwed over Jackie Earl Haley, basically.
mhm.
Favorite kill.
My favorite kill was where, um, and and again, I haven't watched this one in a while. It's and they showed some of it in the trailer. It was where he killed the one boy that was like, and he said the line, "Why are you screaming? I haven't even touched you yet."
Right.
That was some good stuff right there. That was very chilling.
I love the I can't remember if we see this death, but I'm pretty sure we did. The boy across the computer where
Mhm.
he's like reaching out for help and he can't tell whether he's awake or asleep, and Freddy gets him and the screen just cuts to black.
Mhm.
That is so terrifying. And
That is,
it's actually the one of the better things done in that film,
mhm.
and I love it for it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I agree. There were some good deaths and good moments in that remake. It's not as bad as everybody says it is. I'm
uh,
definitely not the best one, but it's not as bad as people make it out to be.
no, I give it a 7 for
Mhm.
this reason. I feel the people in the film, the actors, are trying.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I've talked about this with Darnell that actors are there for a job. They don't write their own characters, and they're not the writers. They're given a script and they follow it, usually. Now, I think Jack Girl did a lot of good things, but I think the writers hurt him by, well, let's have Freddy probably be innocent
Mhm.
and mess with that psychology. It's like you trust me, with a known killer like this, you don't want that. And I don't think Jackie Earl did a great job following the directions because I love the pool. My favorite sequence is the pool sequence
Yeah.
where they're showing the flashback. That's how they show it. It's
Mhm.
such a great visual effect.
Mhm. I
It,
agree. I think that the two big issues that I have with this movie, and they're pretty big, was the fact that they were banking on making a whole classroom full of students not remember something from when they were in second or third grade. That
Right.
I'm willing to go with a little bit of stretch, but that was a little bit too much. And I think the fact that they actually went there and made Freddie a child molester. And, everybody, with Robert Englund always loved being Freddie, dressing as Freddie. And to me, that kind of, I don't know, it just kind of felt weird to, like, you know, love the character and, you were there to watch Freddie. And then the fact that they went there and made him a child molester instead of it being implied like it was with Wes Craven. Just, I don't know. It may not have bothered anyone else, but to
Right.
me, it kind of got a little bit of an ick factor for me.
We don't in the original films. We don't hear child molester until part 5.
Yeah.
With the newspaper clippings. And I got to give Daniel Culver credit because he pointed that one out to me. But and then I went back and watched it and seen it. And I'm like, oh shit, oh yeah. But I'm with you. Like, if you're gonna, it's nowadays, and I do think you could make a Nightmare on Elm Street movie and have that suggestiveness.
Mhm.
You don't necessarily want to show rape, but imply it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes the original so good. It was implied, not shown, and not that they necessarily showed it in the remake. They showed the marks on their bodies, sort of implying it that way, which I don't
Yeah.
mind. But I'm with you to mass hypnosis on a bunch of second graders. It's like, huh? Did you phone up Dr. Hoffman?
Exactly. In a world where Julia Hoffman's not there to perform it, I'm not buying it. So,
It it's funny because in the in this movie they have the pills, the hypnocell pills, basically in a form of way. Now, if you would have convinced me that all these kids were taking those pills and then the hypnosis, that I might have bought.
yeah.
But they all weren't. One was. So it's like, yeah, that makes no sense.
Yeah, it was a little too much for me to go with.
So we're literally through our. Is there anything you want to add or talk about?
Yeah, I want to ask you a question. What was your favorite out of all the films? Which was your favorite kill of Freddy?
That's so tough. I'm gonna go. And it's funny because I talked to Butch Rosenbaum last night about Friday the 13th. So I'm
Mhm,
gonna say Jason killing Freddy and holding the head
mhm.
because it's just we never got a rematch, and we damn well should have.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. I agree. And I'm on the side that even though we saw Jason carrying the head, I still feel like Freddy still kind of won that fight. But I'm gonna go with I'm gonna have to go back to Dream Warriors. I loved like that they established like a lore where we find out Freddy's backstory in that, and that's such a big part of the story of Nightmare on Elm Street. That how he was conceived. His mother was a nun, and
Yeah,
she gang raped over the holidays, and that's so horrible. Over the holidays, she was stuck in an asylum while everybody had gone home, um, and like that they had to, I guess, to get rid of Freddy, they had to find where his bones were buried and, pour holy water on them and that it would, banish him. And I thought that was like a really, really cool way to do it. So it was like, he had Catholic origins. And I thought that that was a cool way to kind of bring it full circle that, you had to have a Catholic element of the holy water to lay him to rest. I
Right.
like that. I thought that was a really cool way to do it.
I love the fact that you touched upon the backstory.
Hmm.
They because they use this backstory throughout
Yeah.
the 4, 5,
Hmm.
and it's just like even 6.
Hmm.
So I love that they do that. They don't stray from it.
Hmm.
They, and the raping of a nun. God bless Wes Craven for getting
Yeah.
it.
That was, oh, that was such a horrible, horrible thing. But, I mean, it was, I thought it was a good backstory and origin for, for the character.
It's weird because people will say, "What's a film you wouldn't show your kids?" And I was like, I would pretty much almost show my kid that I probably wouldn't show my kid Death Wish 2
Hmm.
because you see the rape sequence.
Yeah.
I've seen it on VHS years ago. Then I saw it on TV, minus those sequences. A movie like that and movies that have full blown rape aren't going to get made today.
Right.
They just aren't. I think the last one I saw that got made, which is oddly enough had Joe, which to me is a Death Wish remake, even though it's not called that. It's called The Brave One with Jodie Foster, and her character gets raped,
Hmm.
and it's like they somewhat show it, but you get the idea of what happened to her real simply.
Yeah.
And it's like, do you have to show it? No. Do I applaud that you took the chance? Sure.
Hmm.
Because film is an art form, right? Like
Right. Right.
it's I think the biggest issue I have is horror gets chastised for it. Where any other film, if let's say I'm trying to think of a big name. If Bruce Willis, I know he's not as big as he once was, but so I'm trying to think of another big name. Okay, if Matt Damon
Hmm.
was in a movie, an action movie where someone got raped, it would it would just be ignored. No one would pay attention to it. And he murdered the people. But if it was a horror movie,
Hmm.
everybody, people would bitch about it.
Yeah.
And I feel horror. My biggest issue is don't chastise horror for what everyone else has already known.
Yeah. And last year, I watched uh, I watched Game of Thrones, and there's a lot of it in Game of Thrones. I mean, it's a good series, but it's hard to watch because of that. I can't, like anything to do with rape scenes is something that I can't watch. I have to turn my head. Um, and there's a lot of it in that, but I mean, nobody really seemed to say anything about that, because it was Game of Thrones. But yeah, you put something like that in horror or imply it, and it does get thrown under the bus.
It's like, look, you and I are both married. We both have kids. It just we're not applauding it. We're just saying, hey, look, if you're going to, sort of hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil when it's something you like an action movie or Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah.
Then why not do the same for horror just because it's in that genre?
Right.
If I do think somebody will, I refuse to believe Warner Brothers is just going to sit on a Nightmare on Elm Street. They're not.
I hope not.
They're not. They're going to do something with it. What they'll do with it, I don't know. But hopefully they will not be afraid to take chances.
Right.
So it just let me ask you a question.
Sure.
I've because I'm doing a video tomorrow morning, sometime in the morning,
Hmm.
about anime from animation to live action.
Hmm.
What do you think the biggest issue is that anime seems to? fall flat when it gets turned into live action?
Um, I would say probably, and it's going to sound like a blanket answer, but I mean, I've not seen a lot of anime, but from what I've seen, it would definitely be the violence because you have
Right.
EAA in control of something going to live action film, as opposed to an anime that's released in Japan in a whole different country. I would definitely say a lot of the violence. There's a lot of the power that's I guess in what's going on that gets lost in that translation.
Bingo.
Mhm.
And let me tell you why I agree. The live action Cowboy Bebop got canceled, and
Mhm.
it hasn't even been a month since it dropped.
Wow.
When you watch the
Mhm.
anime is beautifully violent. It's done correctly.
Mhm.
And here's the thing: I don't think the anime was so fantastic to the point of where they couldn't have gotten away with it in the live action. They
Mhm.
just they just don't attempt a lot of it.
Yeah.
Like Spike getting shot. Now Spike gets his arm set on fire, sure, but there's moments where Spike gets shot in the anime,
Mhm.
and I feel at times they're pulling back on that because there's already so much like gunplay in the series,
Mhm.
so they just don't want to take that risk and say, well, if we have him get shot enough times, we're really going into the mortality here. And it's just like you can't pull back on the violence because that's what part of the anime is. It's part of the. It's weird because with anime, part of the violence is part of the storytelling,
Yeah.
even more so than in any action movie.
Mhm.
And I'm with you. You hit the nail right on the head. And it's funny. There are people in rooms who are going, well, why? And I said, it's a lack of they're too afraid to show the full action from what the anime was to, well, let's tone it back.
Mhm.
They always tone it back. And I don't think the action is bad, you know what I mean, in live action,
Mhm.
but it's not close enough to the actual anime product that you saw. So when
Right.
fans don't see that,
Mhm.
they're gonna be pissed.
Yeah. And I think the same thing can be said with a lot of video game to live action.
Yeah,
Well, um, except with the exception, I think of Silent Hill.
yeah,
Um, that back around, I think they stayed pretty faithful to it. I know there were more things that they wanted to do, but because of budget, they didn't have enough money to do it. But yeah, I think a lot of the same thing happens to a lot of video game to uh, movie, and that's why a lot of people reject them so much because they have to pull back so much. And I'm not like a gore hound or anything like that, but
uh,
there sometimes, like, there's key things that happen in a game, and sometimes it just happens that a certain part of violence is a big part of what propels the story forward. And when you pull that back and kind of neuter it a little bit, it loses the effectiveness.
it does, and that's sort of the thing. Like the Mortal Kombat movies, the first one and then the remake, they didn't pull back,
No.
and so that's why it was successful. With animation, it's you've got to have. Here's where we'll both applaud the Ghost in the Shell movie. It had that intensity,
Uh-huh.
right? It met that action,
Uh-huh.
and that's why we both like it. It
Uh-huh.
it it did everything other than I think we both wanted more CGI,
Uh-huh.
but like everything else was fine.
Yeah.
It's like you just when you don't, and Cowboy Bebop needs to be take it and learn from it because this is what gets me too. This is where people should really be pissed off. Netflix paid money to make this a series.
Hmm.
It was 12 episodes, I believe. The Cowboy Bebop anime is one season, 26 episodes.
Hmm.
This was only 13, I want to say, and you didn't even really scratch the surface.
Hmm.
To me, you're taking your money and you're flushing it down the toilet. And that's where people should really be pissed off instead of, well, they didn't, like you said, they didn't meet the action. And I agree. But it's like, okay, you're bitch, give them a chance,
Hmm.
but they don't.
Hmm. Exactly. And I I have to say that I would be kind of worried, like, Dark Shadows, and I have to bring this in. Um, that was some problems that I had with the 2012 movie. Beneath the surface with the story. Dark Shadows was not a comedy. It wasn't like a dark comedy. It had some pretty dark moments to it,
Right.
and um, it just really it just pulled back too much to make it more into a comedy, and that's where I felt like they really missed the point. And why that's a baseline big issue I have with it was that I thought you have Johnny Depp, you have a great cast, and just like Jackie Earl Haley, and he's in
Yep.
this film, you know, everybody was, I think they were trying to do the best they could with what they were given, with the direction they were given. But yeah, that was my big problem with this film. I just felt like, there's a certain darkness that Dan Curtis was not afraid to go into, and we see that in House of Dark Shadows, that um, Seth Grahame-Smith and the team that wrote the 2012 Dark Shadows movie just, they completely ignored the source material and made something totally different.
There's moments in that movie where they could have made it into a dark movie
Mhm.
and kept okay. Maggie Evans slash Victoria Winters can see and talk to ghosts. The after we see the flashback of Barnabas
Mhm.
of what happened to him, the the first thing we should get is a phone call, and it's the Evanses. Your daughter has escaped from Wincliffe. There's your Wincliffe reference.
Yep.
There's your Wincliffe. You don't have to see it. You just have to know this woman escaped. And if you
Mhm.
want to show it, show how she picked the lock, got out, and just bolted. Then she's in the hiding. This is why and I wouldn't have Wincliffe on the East Coast. I would have her be from maybe the mid South.
Mhm.
That way she's getting away from them. She's traveled that far. And this is why she has to change her name. She has to get as far away from her own parents because they don't understand her. And
Right.
yes, she can talk to the dead. And you have, again, there's moments they could have did in this movie they just don't even dare to touch. Alice Cooper, I'd rather Alice Cooper play Barnabas's father than just get a senseless cameo.
Right. Right.
But
And Barnabas, when they find him, um, and he's just like going crazy, and he bursts out of the coffin, and he's like mass murdering this whole construction crew. You know, go with that. But then is like as soon as he attacks the last guy, we turn it's McDonald's joke, and I'm like, it just killed the mood. And that's the thing. Like you think they're finally going to start doing something, and then they pull the rug out from under you for a lame joke, and that it just happens way too much in this one.
yeah, I've never. I've never been able to write Dark Shadows as a comedy, and neither did you. And it's because it's not meant to be.
No.
That's just it. You're supposed to have that intensity.
Mhm.
There again, I think the two most intense characters, and again, I'm with you. That sequence of him killing the construction workers is brutal,
Yeah.
and it's great and dark until well, McDonald's. But like one of my favorites. Now we don't get to see it. Is him killing the hippies?
Yeah.
He's like apologizing
Mhm.
because it's sort of sinister in a way. It's like, I'm sorry, I have to kill every one of you, and it's like, oh shit.
Right. And they were just completely oblivious to what was going on.
It's weird because in Laura Parker's book, Dark Shadows of Salem Branch, there's this hippie that Barnabas hasn't gone for that he hands around some hippies in that book. Oh my god. But yeah, it's just like if you're going to, I'm not saying you can't have comedy,
Mhm.
right? But
Don't
ev-
ruin what you're setting up.
right, like
Yeah.
don't, if it's serious, don't have a punchline at the end of it.
Yeah. I mean, if you're setting out to make a movie based on a horror series, when it comes to comedy, less is more.
Yep.
Don't try too hard to make it funny.
This isn't Harlem Nights, right? I mean, if you want to have like violence and a laugh, watch that movie. That
Yeah.
movie's funny as fuck.
Yeah.
Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy, I swear to God. But yeah, it's just like I wish literally we could have gotten a more serious Dark Shadows in 2012. And again, this movie is probably the most beautiful cast.
Yeah.
Outside of, I mean, like the original actors from the original Dark Shadows, they were great. But here's the thing: the actors they cast in this movie were all really great. They just got a shitty script.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Just it's like, will you watch? Someone asked me, "Will you watch do you watch the 2012 movie?" Yes, yes,
Yeah.
I do. And right after I do it, I stick a needle in my eye. But
It's like I got to take a shower after I watch that one.
uh, you will feel very, very dirty.
Yeah.
But it's okay. It's okay. It's like, oh my God. Right. Right. It really is. It's just like, why in God's name did you take the script you had, whatever that was with the Leviathan,
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
should have went with it, dude. Should have went with it. Is there anything you want to add?
Um, I can't really think of anything, but okay, if let's say that Warner Brothers makes an announcement soon that they're going to make a Nightmare on Elm Street, would you want Robert England to return?
Oh my God. Yeah, that's me. Didn't you? No, I'll answer it like this because I can only, it's not going to be a sequel to anything. You
Right.
know, I think we have to face some sort of reality here. This is either going to be a reboot, remake, or retcon. One of those three.
Mhm.
If Robert, I want Robert to come back. If Robert wants to come back,
Mhm.
I don't want Robert just to say he wants to come back and then not really want to be there and be miserable
Yeah.
because I could see that happening.
Mhm.
And even though Robert England hasn't played Freddy since, well,
Yeah.
the Goldbergs,
Yeah.
and he still looked good. Know that if you really want to have a gesture of faith with Robert, make him an executive producer and give him some power.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I was going to say. I would want him to come as, one of the writers or one of the producers, have him put some money and have, some actual say, because I mean, we know no matter who's directing and who is cast, the producers are the ones that have the final say, because
Right.
they're the money. So I would love to have him as, in some role as a producer and have some input in the story.
I think that's the thing too. If the writer is handing Robert the script and he's the producer and he looks at it and doesn't like it, he can say no and they can go back to the drawing board because he's not just a producer, he's the person being Freddy again. And that's the thing. Don't just make this movie to be a cash grab,
Mhm.
and don't just make this movie for the sake of making it. Make it to be really fucking good.
Yeah.
And I think really that's what Robert would want too. I mean, if he comes on board and B's producer and has say and has that power, I think we'll get a great movie.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to reverse your question to you. Do you want Robert Englund to come back?
I would like him to come back, like we were talking about, as someone behind the scenes, as input for the story. Um, I'm not really sure who I would. I would love to see them have a new person.
Mm.
I would love to see them have a new person as Freddy Krueger, but a role that big, they don't just have one audition for. You
Right.
know, that's the kind of role where they would have 4, 5, 6 auditions for. For the final one, I would want Robert Englund to be present and be a part of the decision making for the final audition,
Yeah.
because
If,
I have a hand in choosing who is going to, who he's going to pass the torch to.
right. If he's not going to be Freddy and he's just going to be a producer, I
Mhm.
agree. I mean, it's crazy to think that so much time has passed since the last one, right?
Yeah.
It really just is. I can only imagine how much time's going to pass for Friday the 13th because it's just that crazy. But hey, there's still Halloween.
And I think I may be wrong, but I've heard that after Halloween kills or Halloween ends, um, that David Gordon Green has committed to making a new Exorcist trilogy.
Yep, he
Yeah,
has.
yeah. I heard they gave him, I think it was, I can't remember the exact dollar amount, but it was like 400 some $1,000 to make a new Exorcist trilogy. So I
Yeah,
think, they're going to do like a Halloween thing where they retcon back to the first one.
yeah. He's doing that, and I think he has some involvement in Hellraiser. I could be wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but the new Predator movie's coming to Hulu
Mm-hmm.
next year. We have Scream
Mm-hmm.
coming next year. Any predictions on that?
I'm not sure. I've only seen the first Scream. I haven't watched any of the other sequels yet. Yeah, I've lost all cred. you want?
No, no, you're good. I got one prediction.
Mhm.
And once you see the other sequels, you'll see why I say this. Every horror fan is a true crime fan, right? I think this killer in the new Scream is the real Ghostface. Is not saying that the others weren't real, weren't killers, but this is the one that they were all copying from,
Mhm.
especially Billions do.
Mhm.
And the real one finally shows up.
Mhm.
Who, and again, because horror and true crime go together like peanut butter and jelly.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
So that's my bold prediction for the new Scream.
Now, I did enjoy the Scream TV series. That
Yeah.
couple seasons. That was a good series.
Yes. Yes, it was. Yes, sir. So I'm trying to think. If you are you going to take Lynn to see the new Scream?
Oh yeah, yeah,
There you
absolutely.
go.
Hmm.
You carry that girl in that theater. I don't care what you.
Yeah, I've still got to. We were going to try to go to the movies again this weekend, and we just couldn't make it. So, I guess I'll have Ghostbusters Afterlife to come out on Blu-ray, and um, I know it gets flack, but I'd still like to see the new Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City just to give it a try.
I haven't seen either. Either the last thing I saw was Halloween Kills.
Thing.
Like I've been like just doing other stuff, so it's just like I'll get to it.
Yeah,
It's
right.
like I'll get there. It's like I'll get there. It's okay. But oh my god, Mark, my friend, is there anything you want to add? But before we go,
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on. I've had such a good time.
no, it's always fun to bring you on. I love bringing you guys on and you on and just having fun and talking. So that's Mark's top kills for A Nightmare on Elm Street. And you heard my insanity. Mark, man, thank you. God bless and have a good night, man.
You. Good night.
Good night. Bye bye.
Bye.